A human target. The galaxy knew her name, but no one dared to say it aloud. Valari, the silent killer, the violet-eyed assassin from the starless worlds. She had ended kings, generals, even a peace ambassador mid-speech. She never failed. She never asked why, until now. The message came through her neural implant as she stood alone on a cold asteroid. A new target. A new face. She opened the mission file. Target, Elias Gray species, human profession, engineer location, isolated research base. Moon 7, Orion sector objective, eliminate silently. No damage to the lab. She frowned. An engineer, she whispered. This is a waste of my skills. But orders were orders. So she prepared her ship, cleaned her blades, sharpened her focus, and flew toward the quiet moon where Elias lived. 3 days later, Valari sat in the shadows of the trees outside the human small research base. The jungle moon was hot and loud, with giant birds screeching and glowing insects buzzing everywhere. The base was simple, a white dome with solar panels, supply crates, and one antenna blinking into the stars. She had been watching him for hours. Elias Gray, mid-30s, short brown hair, slim build. He wore old clothes and glasses. He talked to himself. He hummed while working. He didn't look like a threat, but he was supposed to be building something dangerous. A signal jammer, a weapon, a trap. She zoomed her scope onto his desk through the window. Blueprints, circuits, a glowing sphere in the center, still unclear. But tonight, she would end it. She waited until the sun dipped behind the trees. The sky turned purple. Elias cooked something over a small stove and played music. Soft, sad notes. Valari took her position. High ground, silent rifle in hand, target in sight, heart rate calm, wind steady. Her finger moved to the trigger, but just as she began to squeeze, he spoke. Not to her. To no one, but she heard it clearly through her audio sensor. I hope she's real. Valari blinked. Who? He stood by the window now, sipping tea, staring into the stars. I wonder if she remembers me. Violet eyes. She had violet eyes. Valari's own eyes widened. Her breath caught for the first time in years. She lowered the scope. He was describing her. She backed away from the weapon, confused. This wasn't in the mission file. No one was supposed to know her. She had no photos in any database. Her kills were clean, silent. She didn't leave evidence. And yet, Elias spoke like he had met her. She moved closer to the dome, silent as smoke. Through the glass, she saw sketches pinned to the walls. Most were of machines, wires, maps. But one sketch stopped her cold. A face. Her face. Sharp cheekbones. Long hair. Eyes like twin galaxies. Violet. She whispered. Impossible. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but confusion. She hadn't felt this in years. Memories scratched at the edges of her mind. A battlefield. Smoke. A wounded boy. A brief meeting. A choice she had made long ago and forgotten. Could he be? She vanished into the trees before the night cameras could pick her up. Inside the dome, Elias sat on his bed, staring at the same drawing. He touched the edge of the paper and smiled. Even if she doesn't remember. She saved me. That's why I'm building this. For her kind. For peace. Valari crouched high in the canopy above. She should have fired. She had the shot. It was clean, easy. But something inside her cracked. She remembered the boy now. Wounded, bleeding. She had been ordered to finish him, but he had looked at her not with hate or fear, but wonder. You're beautiful, he had whispered, even with blood on his lips, and she had walked away. Now here he was, a man, still remembering, still dreaming of her. She stood, blades still strapped to her back. But now, she wasn't so sure. Could she kill someone who saw her as more than a weapon? Could she kill someone who remembered her as a person? The galaxy had called her perfect, unstoppable. But tonight, for the first time ever, Valari hesitated. Closer than the blade, Valari didn't return to her ship. She didn't send the kill report. She didn't even sleep. She sat in a high tree, watching the human who remembered her. The night passed slowly, and for the first time in years, she didn't know what to do. Elias woke early, yawning and stretching in his tiny room. He poured water into his cup, rubbed his eyes, and turned on a small music device. Soft piano sounds filled the dome. Valari watched through the window. His movements were calm, familiar. She had studied thousands of targets, but this one was different. She felt it. Not just because he knew her face, not just because he said her name in his sleep, but because when she looked at him, she didn't see prey. She saw something warm. As the sun rose, she moved closer. No weapons drawn, no suit activated, just her quiet steps, almost floating across the forest floor. She crept up to the dome, silent like mist. Through a side window, she saw his workbench, tools, maps, and more drawings. She opened a hidden blade in her palm, not to use it but for comfort. Her hand always felt steady with steel in it, but now it trembled. Inside the dome, Elias was talking to himself again. I need to reinforce the antenna. Signals weak on stormy nights. He paused, then looked at a sketch beside him. Her face. The same one from years ago. The one memory that never faded. I wish I could tell her, he whispered, that she gave me a reason to live. Valari leaned against the wall. Her heart wasn't racing. It was aching. She had been trained to ignore such feelings. Emotions made killers weak. But standing outside his dome, hearing those quiet, honest words, she didn't feel weak. She felt seen. Later that day, Elias walked outside with a scanner, unaware that the assassin he feared was only a few feet away, watching. She moved through the trees, perfectly hidden. Then she paused. He had dropped something. A book. Valari slipped from the shadows, picked it up and examined the pages, sketches, notes, and on the last page, a journal entry. I think she saved me because she saw something in me. I don't know what. I just want her to know. I saw something in her too. She didn't look like a monster. She looked lonely. Valari blinked. No one had ever written words like that about her. Not in a file. Not in a mission report. Never in a book. That night she entered the dome. Not through force. Not through shadow. She simply waited until he fell asleep. Then, quiet as a ghost, she slipped through the unlocked panel at the back. Inside, the lights hummed low. She stood over him, blades ready, heart confused. He was asleep, arms resting over, his chest, breathing softly, one strike. That was all it would take. But she didn't strike. Instead, she looked at the table beside his bed. Another sketch. Her again. But this time, smiling, she stepped back, stunned. He had never seen her smile, and yet he imagined it, believed in it, believed in her. She turned away, preparing to leave. But then, he whispered in his sleep, Valari. She froze. Her hand reached out on instinct. Not with a weapon, but open. She placed 2 fingers gently on his forehead. He smiled faintly. Still dreaming. She left before sunrise. When Elias woke, the drawing on his bedside had been moved, and underneath it was written, in clean alien letters, I remember. His eyes widened. He stood and looked out the window. There were no footprints, no sign of anyone. But he knew. She had been there. Back in the jungle, Valari climbed to a high cliff and looked toward the stars. This was no longer a mission. This was a question she had never asked before. Who was she? Without the kill. The failed kill. The knife hovered above his throat. Valari stood over him in silence, blade in hand, perfectly still. Elias slept peacefully, one hand resting on his chest, his mouth slightly open. The soft rhythm of his breath filled the room. Her fingers didn't shake. Her aim was flawless. One motion, 1 second. Done. She had done it 100 times before, but this time, she couldn't move. Earlier that evening, she had made her decision. She told herself, end it. Finish the mission. Forget the voice, forget the drawings. She cleaned her blade, poisoned the backup vial, sharpened her focus. The plan was perfect. Wait until nightfall. Disable the power. No alarms. One cut, just like always. But nothing about this felt like the old days, because her heart wasn't cold anymore. In the hours before her approach, she sat atop a tree near the dome, watching Elias through the window again. He wasn't building a weapon. He was working on a small orb. It glowed faintly, humming with energy. She zoomed in through her lens. Peace signal. Test phase 2. Attempting contact with alien species through open frequency. Valari frowned. He wasn't preparing for war, he was trying to connect, trying to talk to her kind. She broke into the dome just past midnight, same way as before. No sound, no motion sensors triggered, but this time she didn't look at the sketches, or the tools, or the bed. She just walked to him and raised the blade, and now she was frozen. Every part of her body screamed, do it, complete the job, you're a weapon, this is your design. But her eyes saw something else. A small bracelet on his wrist, woven from jungle fibers and bits of tech. She recognized it. He had worn the same one as a boy. Back then, when she had let him live, he had kept it all this time. Valari lowered the blade slowly. Her breathing was shallow, tight. What's wrong with me? She thought. She backed away, turned, but her foot hit something. A small metal cup on the floor. It clattered. Elias woke. His eyes opened fast. He saw her and didn't scream, didn't grab a weapon. He just sat up slowly. You came back, he said softly. Valari stood in the shadows, half hidden, her knife still in hand. He didn't flinch. You're real, he whispered. Silence. Then he smiled. I wasn't sure if I made you up. You saved me back then. Valari said nothing. She didn't move. He looked at her eyes. You have questions too, don't you? She blinked. He reached beside his bed, pulled out a small data chip, and held it out. It's everything I've built. The beacon, the signal, the hope that one day your kind would answer. She slowly stepped forward and took the chip. Their hands brushed. Warmth passed between them. Not fire, not electricity. Something quieter, deeper. He looked at her again. You were sent to kill me, weren't you? She didn't answer. He nodded. I would have understood, but I'm glad you didn't. Valari took a step back. Her voice came out, low, flat, but uncertain. I failed, she said. No, Elias replied. You chose. She stared at him. The words hit harder than any blast. She had never chosen before, only obeyed. Now she stood in the middle of something she had never been, trained for, a choice. She turned and walked to the exit panel. Before leaving, she said softly, They'll send others. I know, Elias replied. Let them come. You may not live next time, he smiled. Then I hope you're the one who finds me again. Outside, the moonlight painted silver shadows across her path. She climbed a tall rock and looked back at the glowing dome. The human inside had given her something she never expected. Not just kindness, not just memory, but the freedom to stop, to fail. And in that failure, she found the first piece of herself. When he saw her, the next night, Valari didn't hide. She didn't sneak through shadows. She didn't climb the roof or disable the power grid. She walked to the front of the dome and knocked 3 soft taps on the metal door. Inside, Elias froze. He had been working late tuning the beacon core. The humming light glowed brighter with every adjustment. He stared at the door in silence. Then, he smiled. She came back. The door slid open with a slow hiss. And there she was, in full view, no cloaking, no armor, just her, tall, graceful, deadly, and calm. Her violet eyes locked onto his. For a long moment, neither said anything. Then she stepped forward into the room. The door closed behind her. Elias stood, slowly. His voice was soft. "Welcome inside." Valari scanned the dome, small, neat, quiet. A warm lamp glowed beside the sketches. His tools were laid out in perfect lines. Everything here had a place except for her. She didn't belong here. Yet, he looked at her like, she did. "You're not what I expected," he said, trying to break the silence. She tilted her head. "You were prepared to die." He nodded. "I figured someone would come eventually, but I didn't expect it to be you." "Why me?" she asked. He walked to the desk, picked up a small hologram disc and activated it. It projected a memory, a young boy lying on blood-stained dirt, soldiers fighting in the distance, smoke, fire, screams, and then, her, Valari. She was younger. Her armor was different, her face more guarded. She knelt beside the boy, her blade ready, but she didn't strike. Instead, she turned and walked away. Elias paused the projection. "That was the day I knew," he said. "You weren't like the others." Valari stared at the image. Her memory of that moment had been foggy, buried beneath hundreds of missions. "I remember now," she whispered. "I spared one child. Once. That child was me." Valari looked down at her hand, the one that held the knife then. "I didn't know why I let you live. Maybe you didn't need a reason," he said. "Maybe something in you just saw me." He stepped closer. "You saved me once. I never forgot your eyes." Valari's voice dropped. "You drew me. Every year." He smiled. "From memory." She walked toward the wall and touched one of the sketches. Her face drawn with softness, something no camera could capture. "You didn't draw a killer," she said. "I never saw one," Elias replied. For a moment, Valari felt unarmed, not because she had no weapon, but because he saw her without the armor, without the blood, without the name assassin. She turned to him. "You built the beacon for me?" "For your kind," Elias said. "But yes, for you too." Valari narrowed her eyes. "Why would you risk everything? Your species, your safety. For me?" He shrugged. "Because you gave me a second chance. I wanted to offer the same to you." She stared at him, unsure of what to say. No one had ever offered her anything but orders. Then Elias reached out, slowly. Not a grab, not a trap, just his hand. Open, waiting. Valari hesitated. She had touched weapons, triggers, throats. Never a hand like this. Never a moment. Like this, she lifted her arm and gently placed her fingers into his palm. A soft hum passed between them. Not a machine, not a signal. Just a shared silence that said everything. "I don't know what happens next," Elias said. "They'll come," she whispered. "To erase me and you. I'm not afraid, you should be. I was until you walked away from me." Twice, Valari's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. They stood together in that small dome, under flickering lights, between a war-filled past and an unknown future. He had seen her once and remembered forever. Now, she saw him, and for the first time, she wanted to remember too. The assassin. Who protected, they came without warning. No sound, no signal, no second chance. Just shadows falling from the sky, sleek dropships cutting through the jungle canopy like blades through silk. Inside the research dome, Elias dropped his tool. The beacon flickered as the ground shook beneath his feet. Valari was already moving. She didn't ask questions. She didn't hesitate. She knew exactly who had come. Assassins, she said flatly, pulling a long blade from the sheath on her back. Elias stared at her. Your people? She gave a slow nod. They found out I didn't complete the kill. Now they'll finish the job. Both of us. But I'm not a threat to them. You weren't, she said. Until I chose you. The first explosion hit near the solar panels. Fire lit the side of the dome. The security sensors screamed red. Valari pushed Elias behind the workbench. Stay low, do not run. They'll expect you to flee. What about you? He asked. She pulled a second blade from her boot. I'm not running. Outside, the night lit up with plasma bolts and strange blue flames. 3 assassins stepped into view, sleek, fast, wearing armor carved from dark glass. Each one moved with deadly precision. Valari stepped forward. Her eyes were calm, her voice colder than ever. Withdraw. The lead assassin tilted his head. You broke protocol. You failed. I chose. Then you die with the human. Valari didn't flinch. Then come and try. The jungle erupted into motion. The assassins attacked together, spinning through the air, blades flashing in the light of the fire. Valari met them head-on. Her body moved like smoke, her strikes like lightning. Blade met blade in a flurry of sparks and screams. She fought not like a soldier, but like a storm. Fast, unpredictable, fierce. But there were 3 of them. She blocked the first, dodged the second, took a cut to the side from the third. Blood splattered the ground. But she didn't fall. Inside, Elias watched through the window, frozen. He had never seen her fight. She didn't just defend. She protected. Every move kept the battle away from the dome. Every turn kept him safe. She wasn't fighting for glory. She was fighting for him. One assassin rushed the side entrance. Elias saw it. His heart pounded. He reached for a tool, a metal rod, nothing more, and ran to block the door. The assassin slammed it open and knocked Elias off his feet. The rod clattered away. The alien raised a blade over Elias's chest. Before it could fall, Valari crashed through the wall. She drove her blade straight through the attacker's neck. He fell, lifeless. She turned to Elias, breathing hard, wounded. You said you weren't afraid, she whispered. I'm still not, he said, even as his hand shook. More explosions, more shadows in the trees, but the others were gone. Valari staggered, blood dripping down her arm. Elias caught her. We have to leave. There's no ship. I'll build something. We just need time. Valari looked into his eyes. She had given up everything to protect this human, and now he was trying to save her, not with weapons, but with hope. She grabbed his hand, squeezing tight. Then let's disappear, she said. They ran together into the forest, the fires of war behind them, and a future that had never been written ahead. Somewhere far above, her people logged the mission. Subject Valari, terminated in battle. Target Elias, neutralized. Threat level, cleared. But they were wrong. She wasn't dead, and neither was he. In a secret cave lit by glowing moss, Elias stitched her wounds in silence. She winced once. Only once. You didn't have to save me, he said. She looked at him, her eyes softer than ever. I didn't save you, she replied. I chose you. He swallowed the lump in his throat. Why? Her answer was simple. Because for once I wanted to protect something that made me feel alive. Outside the cave, the stars turned slowly, and the assassin who had once walked alone now had something worth dying for. And more importantly, something worth living for. Trust with no armor. Rain fell softly outside the cave, tapping the leaves like quiet drum beats. Valari sat on a stone ledge, her armor discarded beside her, scarred, blood-stained, broken. She had never taken it off before. Not in front of anyone, but tonight, she had nothing left to hide. Elias moved gently around the cave, placing small light stones on the walls. The warm glow filled the space with peace. He carried a mug of heated water, mixed with crushed jungle leaves. He brought it to her without a word. Valari looked at the cup, then at him. "I'm not used to being cared for," she said quietly. "I figured," Elias replied with a small smile. "You let me fix your wounds, remember?" "That's different," she muttered. "You were useful," Elias chuckled. "Thanks, I think." They sat in silence. The fire crackled softly between them. Outside, the storm rolled on, but inside the cave, everything felt still. Safe. Valari stared into the flames. "I killed my first target when I was 12, she said suddenly. "A diplomat." He was smiling when I entered his room. Elias didn't speak, he didn't interrupt. "I've taken orders ever since, missions, commands, no questions, no guilt, no name, not just the job." He leaned back against the stone, and then? Valari looked at him. "Then I met a boy, wounded, helpless. He looked up at me, and didn't beg." Elias swallowed. "That boy was me." She nodded. "I let you live. I never told anyone. I thought I forgot. But I didn't." "Why? Didn't you kill me?" "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe because for once someone didn't look at me like a weapon." Elias reached into his pack and pulled out a small device. The beacon. He handed it to her. "This is what I've been building. It sends a message, across all channels, across all species." "What message?" "That humans don't want war. That we're ready to talk. That someone out there still believes in peace." Valari turned the beacon in her hands. Her reflection shimmered on its metal surface. "I was sent to stop this. You were sent to stop me." He looked at her, his eyes gentle but honest. "And now you're here, with no armor, no orders, just you." Valari placed the beacon down and leaned back against the wall. She felt tired, not from battle, but from everything, the running, the missions, the silence in her chest. "I don't know what I am anymore," she whispered. Elias looked at her, really looked, not at the blade marks on her arms, not at the strength in her shoulders, but at her eyes. "Maybe. Now you're someone who gets to choose." The fire crackled. The storm faded. And for the first time in her life, Valari felt something she never thought possible. Peace. Not the kind that came after war. Not the kind someone signed into law. But the kind that came from being seen and not feared. Later that night, she woke from a strange dream. She had been walking in the dark, lost, surrounded by mirrors. Every mirror showed a different version of her. Assassin, soldier, shadow. But then, she saw one, dressed in simple cloth, no blades, no mask. And that version of her smiled. She looked peaceful. She looked free. Valari sat up. Across the cave, Elias slept, curled beneath a blanket made from stitched leaves. She walked over quietly, then sat beside him. She didn't wake him. She just watched him breathe. For so long, her life had been silence, missions, death. But now, she had found something worth guarding. Not with steel, but with her soul. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. More assassins? More war? Maybe. But for tonight, she had no armor, no target, just a reason to stay. The choice that changed everything. They found her at dawn. High above the jungle, 3 dark ships hovered in the sky, silent, sharp, and cold. Inside the largest ship stood Commander Yelrix, her former trainer, her first mentor, the one who had turned her into a weapon. He watched the hologram of Valari sitting in a cave with a human. She was unarmed, unarmored, unchanged, and yet completely different. "Send the final message," Yelrix ordered. One of the officers obeyed. Back in the cave, Valari's implant buzzed. She hadn't felt that signal in years. It was short. One word. Last chance. She closed her eyes and stood silent for a long time. Elias was awake now, already sensing something had shifted. "What is it?" he asked. "They're here," she said. "The assassins?" "No," she whispered. "The ones who trained me." Outside, the jungle shook as the ships descended. The largest one landed in a wide clearing near a waterfall. Valari walked toward the ship slowly, her shoulders squared, her face calm. Elias followed. "Let me come with you," he said. She didn't answer at first. Then she turned, her voice softer than ever. "If I don't come back, don't wait for me. I will. You shouldn't. I will anyway." She looked at him one last time, truly looked, and then walked into the light. Inside the ship, Yelrix stood waiting. His face, once familiar, now felt like ice. "You broke the code," he said. "I made a choice. You abandoned your mission. I found a better one." Yelrix stepped forward. A human. Valari didn't blink. A man. A voice. A reason. "You let emotion break you." "No," she said. "Emotion made me whole." He shook his head. "We trained you to kill, and you succeeded," she said. "But you forgot to teach me what to live for." Yelrix raised his hand. Soldiers stepped forward. "Choose now," he said. "Loyalty to us, or loyalty to the human." Valari stepped into the middle of the room. She raised her hand. Her weapons dropped to the floor. "I choose myself." The soldiers hesitated. No one moved. Yelrix's voice trembled with quiet fury. "You are no longer one of us." Valari turned. "I never was." As she walked out of the ship, no one followed. No one dared. They had trained her to follow. But now they feared the one who could choose. Outside, Elias stood in the clearing, waiting. When Valari appeared, he stepped forward. "You came back." Gave a small smile. "You were right." "About what?" She touched her chest. "There was someone inside this armor all along." Elias took her hand. "So what now?" Valari looked at the ships above. "I think it's time we stop hiding." "You want to fight?" "No," she said. "I want them to see something they never trained for." Later that day, the beacon was activated. A signal was sent, not just to humans, but to everyone. A message of peace, of choice, of voices never heard before. And when her people tried to silence her, they failed. Because others had seen what Elias saw, not a killer, not a tool, but a woman, scarred, brave, and free. Valari stood beside Elias, watching the stars blink in the sky. She didn't know what the galaxy would do next. She didn't care. Because this time, the mission was hers. No one had sent her. No one controlled her. And this time, she didn't need permission to love. She had been sent to erase him. But instead, he helped her find the one thing she never knew she needed, herself.